The inmate transfer that went wrong in the US? A prisoner who vanished inside the system. They were already an hour behind schedule when the van stopped. Not at a facility. Not at a checkpoint. Just off the highway, engine idling, radio crackling with confusion. Stay with this story. What happens next almost didn't get stopped. Officer Marcus Hale glanced at the paperwork again, the thin stack already smudged from nervous hands. 3 inmates. 1 route. 1 destination. That was how transport was supposed to work. Linear. Predictable. But the inmate in the rear seat wasn't where the paper said he should be. Hale felt it before he said it out loud. The kind of feeling that came when routine cracked just enough to show something underneath. "Read that name again," he said to his partner. The partner did. Same answer. Same spelling. Same inmate number. Hale looked back through the reinforced window. The inmate sat calmly, hands folded, eyes forward. No agitation. No fear. Almost prepared. That was the first warning. They pulled back onto the road, radioing dispatch for clarification. Dispatch didn't have it. The originating facility insisted the paperwork was correct. The receiving facility hadn't confirmed intake yet. Someone had signed off. No one could say who. By the time they reached the state line, Hale noticed something else. The inmate hadn't asked a single question. No complaints about the cuffs. No comments about the delay. Nothing. Most transfers complained within minutes. This one waited. At a fuel stop, Hale stepped out and checked the seal on the rear door. Intact. But he looked again at the transport sheet. The inmate's last name appeared twice on different pages, once typed, once handwritten. 2 different handwriting styles. Hale frowned. "This wasn't generated once," he said quietly. His partner shrugged. "Clerical mess. Happens all the time." "That's the problem," Hale replied. "It happens too often." They arrived at the receiving facility just after midnight, a place Hale had worked before, long enough to know its rhythms. Intake was slow at that hour. Fewer eyes. More assumptions. The intake officer scanned the documents and paused. "This says he's supposed to be coming from a different state." Hale nodded. "That's what we're trying to figure out." The inmate finally spoke. His voice was calm. Polite. "You won't find my bed," he said. The room went quiet. "What did you say?" the intake officer asked. The inmate looked at Hale, then back at the officer. "I don't exist on your roster." That was the second warning. They ran the inmate's number again. Then again. The system lagged, spun, refreshed. No error message. No confirmation. Just absence. Hale felt the hair rise on his arms. In a system built on documentation, absence was never neutral. "Step back," the intake officer said, signaling for a supervisor. The inmate complied without hesitation, sitting on the bench as if he'd practiced the movement. His eyes followed the officer's, not with threat, but with expectation. Hale leaned toward his partner. "This isn't random." "Or he's playing us," the partner replied. But Hale had seen men play games before. This wasn't performance. This was positioning. The supervisor arrived, irritated, already tired. "What's the delay?" The intake officer explained. The supervisor scanned the paperwork quickly, then waved it off. "Send him through holding. We'll sort it in the morning." Hale shook his head. "Sir, I recommend we stop this transfer." The supervisor looked at him. "On what grounds?" Hale hesitated. Instinct didn't translate well into forms. The records don't align. There are duplicate entries. Missing confirmations. "That's not unusual," the supervisor said. "If we stopped every transfer with paperwork issues, nothing would move." The inmate smiled, just barely. That was the third warning. Hale felt something shift. The inmate wasn't relieved by the decision. He was satisfied. "Sir," Hale said again, quieter now, "this feels wrong." The supervisor sighed. "You're tired. Log it and move on." They escorted the inmate toward holding. As the door closed behind him, Hale noticed a mark on the transfer folder he hadn't seen before. A small symbol in the corner of the page. Not official. Not random. It matched a symbol Hale had seen once before, years ago, on a different transfer that ended in an internal investigation no one liked to talk about. Hale pulled the old report from memory. Another inmate, another state line, another paperwork issue explained away. That inmate had vanished for 48 hours inside the system before being rediscovered in the wrong facility. No explanation, no accountability. Hale excused himself and went to the admin terminal. He began checking logs manually, not through the summary view but line by line. Time stamps, user IDs, edits. At 1942, the transfer destination was changed. At 1943, it was changed back. At 1944, the change history was wiped. Hale's pulse quickened. No regular clerk had access to that function. He cross-checked the user ID. It didn't belong to transport. It didn't belong to intake. It didn't belong to records. It belonged to an account marked System Override. Hale swallowed. That account was supposed to be locked. He pulled the camera feed from holding. The inmate sat alone, hands folded, posture relaxed. He looked up directly at the camera. Not searching. Waiting. Hale realized then that this transfer hadn't gone wrong by accident. It had gone wrong by design. And whatever they were about to find wouldn't be in the van, or the paperwork, or the route. It would be in the reason someone wanted an inmate to disappear into the system, just long enough to do something no one would trace back. Hale printed the logs and slipped them into his jacket. Because if he was right, this wasn't a clerical error. It was a test. And when they checked the logs, everything changed. By morning, the transfer was already being treated as routine. That was the mistake. Officer Marcus Hale sat in the administrative office with cold coffee and warmer doubt. The logs he'd printed were folded in his jacket, the paper creased like it had something to hide. Overnight, the inmate had been assigned a temporary holding number, a bureaucratic patch meant to buy time until someone higher up decided what to do. No alert, no lockdown, no escalation, just silence. At 7:12 a.m., Hale tried to flag the issue again. He spoke to a different supervisor this time, laying out the inconsistencies carefully. Duplicate entries, wiped change history, the locked System Override account. The supervisor listened, nodded, then did what supervisors often did when a problem didn't fit a known category. He minimized it. Transfers get messy, the supervisor said, especially across state lines. IT cleans this stuff up all the time. This isn't IT, Hale replied. This is authorization. The supervisor glanced at the clock. You're seeing patterns because you're tired. Go home. We'll handle it. Hale left the office with the unsettling sense that the system had already decided he was the problem. When he returned later that afternoon, the inmate was gone. Not released. Not transferred onward. Just reassigned. Holding had been cleared during a mid-morning shuffle. Beds reallocated. Numbers updated. The inmate's temporary ID no longer appeared on the unit screen. Hale stood at the terminal, refreshing the page, waiting for the system to correct itself. It didn't. He found the intake officer from the night shift. Where did he go? The officer frowned. I thought you moved him. I didn't. Well, someone did. That was when Hale realized how disappearance really worked in modern systems. Not with locked doors or secret tunnels, but with routine actions performed by people who assumed someone else had verified them. At 10:26 a.m., the inmate was logged as moved to medical screening. At 10:41 a.m., medical logged a no-show. At 10:42 a.m., the entry was corrected to rescheduled. Rescheduled never came. Hale traced camera feeds backward, moving from corridor to corridor. He found the moment the inmate exited holding, flanked by two officers Hale didn't recognize. Their uniforms were correct. Their badges were not. The footage glitched briefly as they passed a blind corner. When the picture returned, the inmate was no longer in frame. Hale checked staff assignments. No officers with those badge numbers were scheduled that morning. He felt the cold spread through his chest. This wasn't just negligence. It was coordination. Hale brought the footage to Internal Affairs. They took the file, thanked him, and told him not to discuss it further. That night, a memo went out correcting the original transfer paperwork. The inmate's destination was officially amended to match the facility he had arrived at, retroactively. On paper, nothing was wrong anymore. But the inmate still hadn't reappeared. At 2:03 a.m., Hale received a call from a facility 3 hours away. A sergeant there had noticed something strange while reviewing transport rosters. An inmate matching Hale's description had briefly appeared in their system that same morning, then vanished within minutes. Different facility. Same override account. Hale began to understand the scale of the mistake. This wasn't one bad transfer. It was a method. An inmate could be moved, logged, unlogged, and rerouted across jurisdictions faster than oversight could catch up, as long as no one asked too many questions at the same time. And Hale had asked one question too many. The next day, he was reassigned off-transport duty, pending review. His access was reduced. Logs he'd previously seen were now restricted. Requests he submitted sat unanswered. The system was closing ranks. Hale drove home with the feeling that he was now part of the problem, not because he'd caused it, but because he'd seen it. That evening, a plain envelope waited in his mailbox. No return address. Inside was a single printed page. A transport manifest. 3 names were listed. One of them was the inmate who'd vanished. The other 2 were scheduled for transfer the following week. At the bottom of the page was a handwritten note. It only works if everyone assumes it's a mistake. Hale stared at the paper long after the sun went down. Because now he understood what they'd found later wasn't a missing inmate. It was a system that could erase a person, quietly, legally, and repeatedly, as long as no one stopped calling it an error. And next time, the window would be even smaller. Hale didn't sleep that night. The manifest lay on his kitchen table, weighted down by a mug he hadn't touched. 3 names. 1 already erased. 2 scheduled. The handwriting at the bottom wasn't threatening. It didn't need to be. It explained everything he'd felt since the van stopped on the highway. This wasn't chaos. It was procedure. At 6:04 a.m., Hale called the one person he trusted to answer honestly, a retired systems auditor who'd once told him that prisons didn't fail loudly anymore. They failed quietly, through permissions. "I need you to look at something," Hale said. "Officially?" the auditor asked. "No," Hale replied. "Accurately." By mid-morning, they were on a video call, the auditor's screen filled with columns of access logs and time stamps Hale hadn't been able to see since his reassignment. The auditor worked fast, fingers moving with a familiarity that came from years of fixing mistakes no one wanted public. "There," the auditor said. "That's your override." Hale leaned closer. The account wasn't a person. It was a role. A legacy credential created years earlier during a modernization push that never finished. It was meant to resolve conflicts between state and federal databases when jurisdictions overlapped. Temporary. Powerful. Forgotten. "It shouldn't be active," Hale said. "It isn't," the auditor replied. "Not officially." He highlighted a line. The override account had been reactivated for seconds at a time, just long enough to approve a change, then disappear again. No alarms. No flags. The system logged it as self-correction. "Who has access?" Hale asked. The auditor didn't answer right away. He expanded the permissions tree and scrolled. "Anyone who knows where to look," he said. "And anyone who learned how to make the system trust itself." The truth assembled piece by piece. The override wasn't being used to free inmates. It was being used to move them through blind spots, medical, holding, intake overflow, spaces where cameras overlapped poorly and responsibility diluted. Each move was legal on its own. Together, they created invisibility. And it wasn't random who disappeared. Hale cross-referenced the vanished inmate's record with others who'd briefly flickered across systems over the past 2 years. The pattern was unmistakable. All had been informants. Not formal ones, the kind who testified, but internal ones. Men who'd raised concerns. Men who'd disrupted order by telling the truth to the wrong person. The system didn't punish them. It misplaced them. Hale felt the weight of it settle into something colder than anger. "This was never about convenience," he said. "It was about containment." The auditor nodded. "It's cleaner than discipline. No write-ups. No appeals. No headlines. What happens to them? Hale asked. The auditor hesitated. They resurface, he said finally. Different facility, different number, different paperwork, stripped of context. Alive, but untraceable. Hale thought of the inmate's calm. The way he'd waited, the way he'd said, "You won't find my bed." He'd known. At 1:22 p.m., Hale drove to Central without authorization. He didn't bring the manifest. He brought copies of the logs, annotated by the auditor, with time stamps highlighted and permissions mapped. Evidence that spoke the language administrators understood. He was stopped at the front desk. "You're not scheduled," the clerk said. "I know," Hale replied. Neither were the inmates. He waited. 37 minutes later, the investigator from before appeared, expression tight. "You're making this difficult," the investigator said. "No," Hale replied. "I'm making it visible." In the conference room, Hale laid out the findings. The legacy override. The flicker transfers. The pattern of erasure without release. He didn't accuse. He documented. The investigator read silently, jaw set. "This can't be substantiated publicly," he said at last. "It can be stopped privately," Hale replied. The investigator leaned back. "You're asking us to admit a flaw that undermines confidence." "I'm asking you to close a door that shouldn't exist," Hale said, "before someone uses it for something worse." Silence filled the room, the kind that decided things. By evening, the override account was locked. Not deactivated, audited. Permissions stripped. Alerts installed. The fix would be described later as routine maintenance. The 2 scheduled names on the manifest were quietly rerouted with full documentation. No blind spots. No flicker. As for the vanished inmate, Hale never learned where he ended up. But a week later, an update appeared in a distant facility's roster. New number. New bed. No note about the transfer. The system had corrected itself. Hale was offered his old position back with a warning framed as advice. Choose your battles. He declined. Months passed. Reports circulated with softened language. A pilot program standardized transfer confirmations across jurisdictions. Training modules were updated. The override became a case study no one referenced directly. The story never broke publicly. It didn't need to, because the truth wasn't dramatic. It was procedural. One night, Hale drove past the stretch of highway where the van had stopped. Traffic moved steadily now. Nothing marked the place. No sign. No memory. He understood then why the system preferred mistakes to malice. Mistakes could be corrected quietly. Malice demanded accountability. At home, Hale placed the last copy of the annotated logs into a sealed envelope and labeled it with a date. Not for now. For later. Because systems forget faster than people. And because if one door had existed without oversight, another could be built the same way. Quietly, helpfully, with the best intentions. Hale turned off the light and sat in the dark, thinking about how easily a person could slip between fields on a screen and become a rounding error. That was the haunting part. Not that the transfer went wrong, but that it almost worked exactly as intended. This could happen again. The official explanation arrived 3 months later, quietly, in a document most people would never read. It was labeled a process review. No names in the headline. No mention of disappearance. Just careful language about workflow alignment and cross-jurisdictional visibility. The kind of report designed to close a case without reopening questions. But inside the system, things had changed. Transport protocols were tightened. Confirmations that once relied on assumption now required dual verification. Override accounts were audited, then buried behind layers of authorizations so thick they slowed everything down. The fix worked, not because it eliminated the risk, but because it made mistakes louder. And loud mistakes attract attention. Marcus Hale noticed the difference immediately. Transfers took longer. Intake staff asked more questions. Supervisors hesitated before waving things through. Friction had returned to a system that once prided itself on speed. Most officers complained. Hale didn't, because he understood what friction really meant. It meant fewer people could vanish without a record. Fewer moments where silence was mistaken for order. Still, the inmate at the center of it all never reappeared in any report Hale was allowed to see. His new number existed somewhere. His old identity was sealed behind corrected entries and archived logs. Officially, the system had resolved itself. Unofficially, the damage lingered. Hale spoke with officers at other facilities who had experienced the same uneasy moments. Transfers that didn't feel right, records that corrected themselves too quickly, questions that were discouraged rather than answered. They had all assumed it was normal. That assumption was the real danger. Because systems don't fail only when people do the wrong thing. They fail when everyone does the easy thing. One officer told Hale something that stayed with him. "I always thought losing an inmate meant a jailbreak," she said. "I never imagined it could happen while following the rules." That was the quiet truth no one wanted to admit. The most unsettling part of the case wasn't that someone had exploited the system. It was that the system made exploitation efficient, legal. No alarms, no violence, no obvious villain. Just a chain of reasonable decisions that added up to something no one would claim responsibility for. Months later, Hale was asked to brief a group of administrators from a neighboring state. He didn't show them the dramatic parts. He didn't talk about fear or tension. He showed them timestamps. This line changed. This one disappeared. This one corrected itself. He watched their faces tighten as they realized how familiar the structure looked. One of them asked the question Hale had been waiting for. "How many times do you think this happened before anyone noticed?" Hale didn't answer right away. "Enough," he said finally, "and probably more than we'll ever confirm." The room went quiet. That silence wasn't fear. It was recognition. Because every large system, not just prisons, relies on trust in processes no single person fully understands. When those processes break, the damage doesn't look dramatic. It looks administrative. And administrative failures don't go viral. They don't trend. They don't demand immediate action. They just repeat. Hale left the meeting knowing the fix wasn't permanent. It never was. Systems evolve. Shortcuts return. Pressure builds. Someone, somewhere, would eventually decide that speed mattered more than certainty. When that happened, the conditions would be right again. Not for an escape, not for a riot, but for someone to disappear between lines on a screen. That was the real lesson of the transfer that went wrong. Not that the system failed once, but that it worked exactly as designed until someone paid attention. And attention, Hale knew, was always temporary. This could happen again. If this story made you uncomfortable, it should. Because the next one won't be about a missing inmate. It will be about something much harder to undo. Stay with this channel. The next investigation goes deeper.